Okay. Uh, Jack, are you ready to take us on a tour of your shack?
Yes, sir. Ready to go.
All right, hit your share screen and you're off and running.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for taking time for stopping by this morning for a short visit. This morning, the temperature was 36 degrees here, but of course, under the dome, it's clear 69 degrees, light southerly breezes, so it's not a problem for us to live under the dome. For those of you who do not know me, my name is Jack, and my call is KA4OTB. For those of you who do know me, my name is still Jack, and my call is KA4OTB. Patsy and I live on the far east end of Concord Road. We bought this property about 27 years ago, and at that time it was out in the county, no city around. We had volunteer fire department, the sheriff was our law enforcement. Over time, Brentwood kept expanding to the east, and eventually they annexed us in, and so all of my radio antennas and everything were grandfathered in or grandmothered in, one of those things. But anyhow, I didn't ask anybody. I just put them up. Antennas, antennas, and more antennas. If you've attended a WCARES meeting at the Public Safety Center where Dr. Kreth was presenting the technical topic, you will have heard him say on many times, if you have $100 to spend on ham gear, spend $95 on antennas and spend whatever's left over on something else. Remember, you can't work them if you don't hear them. Starting my antenna collection, I have a Gap Challenger Vertical. Does not require radials, but it has three 45-foot counterpoints. This was just set up in the backyard. People can hide them in trees, and if you got HOA restrictions, there's ways around that. What I'm trying to show here is I've got 5 halfway monoband dipoles, 20, 40, 60, 80, and 160. So those are single band antennas. I also have a G5RV that I use for digital work. And to round out the antenna farm, I got a 40-foot tower with a stepper beam, a 3 dual band VHF UHF antennas, a disc cone antenna for my scanner, a GPS antenna for my satellite clock. My primary UHF VHF communications antenna is at the top of the mast that the beam is attached to. That antenna is approximately 70 feet AGL. That's airplane talk for above ground level. You get that for no extra charge. On more than one occasion, I've heard a ham say that he or she cannot put up an outside antenna because of the support pole, and the antenna would violate HOA rules. If you look closely at that antenna in the foreground, you'll see a 4-inch white PVC pipe, which is a vent for the bathroom. I used a short piece of pipe to hook the antenna to, and then I put the piece of pipe down on the vent with 2 hose clamps, tightened it down, and I now have a low profile antenna on the back side of the house. I say low profile, in that particular antenna is 9 foot tall, but you can get a 3 or 4 foot tall dual band antenna, and if you get it on the back of the house, no sweat, no problem. You don't have antenna poles sticking up, and you can probably get away with that. If you look above, another dipole antenna, and each of the feed lines on all of my dipoles, with the exception of the 160 meter, I've got them oriented on a north-south line, and so the feed lines all drop down on the roof of the house. And at that point, I run them down the leg of the tower down to the bottom. I have an 8-foot ground rod in at the base of the tower to get the coax feed lines into the shack. I fabricated a feed-through panel made of aluminum. I drilled 16 holes big enough to put a threaded feed through each connector in each hole. In the middle of the picture, there's a large 4-gauge wire that connects to the bus bar in the house to ground. You might ask yourself, Why would you use 4 gauge wire for a ground? The answer is somebody gave me enough of it to use, so that took care of that. We go on the other side of the panel, and you'll see I also have an additional uh, AB switches in there, and that allows me to do some other trimming to the antenna situation. If you look closely, you can see all of the connectors are labeled, and I've got them labeled on the inside, I got them labeled on the outside, and I've got it on a piece of paper so that if they faded or anything, but that has not been a problem. Okay, this is the general overall layout of my station. I've got plenty of space to set up my equipment. I've got 2 desks arranged in an L configuration, and I have a 9 foot by 7 foot work surface. Both of the desks are on casters for easy movement if needed. To the left end of the desk in the foreground, I've got an Astron 50 amp power supply connected through a power gate to a rig runner. The other connection to the power gate goes to a 100 amp hour backup battery. Fastened to the side of the equipment shelf are 2 more antenna switches. I'll explain their use in another slide. My normal configuration is 3 monitors and 2 computers. However, if I'm working a contest, the alignment changes. On the computer in front of the keyboard will be the contest logging software. The computer screen to the right of that, I hook onto my radio at 7610, and I get a reproduction of the radio screen without having to look the other way. The third monitor I use for packet cluster if the contest allows the use of that. This is my actual equipment setup. It's fairly extensive array of equipment, but it all has a purpose. I have more than 1 meter. I've got more than 1 tuner. I've got more than 1 speaker. It may look cluttered, but it is functional in the way it's arranged. The HF radio is an ICOM 7610. In front of the keyboard, to the left side with the green screen, that's an ICOM IC2820 dual band radio, which allows me to operate analog in D-Star. To the right of the keyboard, and you see another small screen, is a Yaesu FDM100D. It covers both analog and fusion. And I also have a HT there in the background. The coax from the various antennas are routed to this antenna switch. You can see that position 4 has 2 bands labeled. One of the blue AB switches that I showed you earlier has both the 20-meter and the 60-meter antenna come into that. And then the singer, depending on how that's selected, that antenna is ported to the switch box you see there. On 10, 15, and 80 meters, I can select between 2 different antennas. On 20 and 40 meters, I have the capability of using one of 3 different antennas. This allows me to use the antenna that has the best signal. Every now and then you need a little oomph to make that contact. This is the control head of an ICOM PW1 kilowatt amplifier for those hard times. If you've been a member of WCARES long enough to participate in some of our operating events, you know that Tim Cliff Baxton, and I have a friendly back and forth rapport about the advantages of brute force high power versus operator finesse in operating QRP. I'll tell you right off, I take my hat off to the QRP operators. If you remember our 2018 field day, we operated battery QRP, and our score, but it's not a contest, put us in the top 10 of the 2,903 submitted logs. If I'm working a contest and I hear a QRP station calling, they automatically move to the head of the line. About a month ago, I was making some adjustments on one of the antennas, and I had reduced the power of my HF rig to the point where I could just get the smallest needle movement on my watt meter. I was in the process of working those tests, and the DX cluster started beeping and the lights started flashing for a country I needed. The spot was for a 5 November station in Nigeria. I swung the beam toward Africa and started calling. And after a few calls, I made the contact and we exchanged reports. After it was over, I realized my power was still turned down to almost nothing. I took a close look at the watt meter and realized I had made the contact in Africa with less than 1 watt of power. I wanted to show Tim and Cliff that I could operate QRP, so I took a picture of the watt meter to show them. If you look closely, the meter is not even quite 1 watt. How about that? If there's times you really do want to make that rare DX contact, I do have the means to crank up a brute power if I need it with this legal limit amplifier. I told you earlier I would show you how the 2 additional switches fit into my setup. Having 2 amplifiers requires cable swapping around depending on which amplifier you want to use. The extra meters and tuners I have allow me to operate without having to do anything but move 2 switches. If I want to use the AL1500, look at the path shown in red. From my radio, it goes to one of the switches, and I select position 1. From there, it goes to the AL1500, LP100, W4, my tuner, back to the second switch, which is on position 1, and that goes to the antenna switch. If I'm going to use the PW1, it's just a matter of switching the switch from number 1 to number 4 on the input and number 4 on the output, and I've got a complete line there without having to change individual cables and wires and shuffle things around. Another issue I wanted to address is how to keep the various CIV connections in USB ports. My radio only has 1 CIV output, although this can be increased by using the USB connections on the back of the radio. I needed more CIV and USB connections that were available. I solved my problem by fabricating an external CIV hub right down here at the bottom and an external USB hub up here. I come out of the USB connectors on the back of the computer, and I've got them labeled. I've got COM3 for my mixed W, COM2 for N3 FJP, COM4 goes over to this extra hub, and actually this has been changed. I had COM1 there, but I've shuffled that over to COM8 with the help of Hilton. This is the switch panel I use to make the switch between the 2 lines. If you look at the right-hand switch labeled input, you see some colored tabs. I was at the boy toy store, that is Harbor Freight, and I noticed these plastic tabs. There are 12 of tabs in a package, and they're even number of colors. The price was 79 cents a package. On the other side of the tab, which I did not turn around for you, there's a piece of paper that you can write on. At the other end of each piece of coax, there is a matching color tab and a written description of where and what that particular piece of coax goes to. Even a caveman can do it. Are these terms the same thing? Some people say yes, some people say no. Pick the terminology you like. For the purpose of this presentation, I'm going to say that they are different. Drop kit will mean the equipment I need, which is radio, power supply, antenna, coax, whatever it takes to get me on the air at the minimum amount of time to set up a station. You can add other items to that list, but remember, the more you add means the more stuff you've got to gather together if you need it. You do not have to have every piece of radio equipment shown, every piece of radio equipment to get you started on a drop kit. Here's the starting of a drop kit. You can add more items as you acquire them, but that gets you going. This is my drop kit. It has HF, VHF, UHF, COM, and packet. It's got an antenna tuner, power supply, signal link, and a Cantronics modem. That's a musician's case, and I've got just the front and the back. I just click it onto that, and away I go. This kit I use every week. I test the radios every week by making contacts. The equipment in this box is dedicated to the box. I don't have to use it for something else and then find it and put it in the box. That's all equipment for the box. A Go kit contains just about anything else you can want to support your communication equipment. Your choice and my choice will probably be different. Not wrong, but different. After many tries to get it right, I ended up with this piece of equipment, a 6x12 closed-in trailer. On one side of the trailer, I put an equipment rack in, and I have 24 numbered containers on a shelf in the front of with a number on each package. At the front of the trailer, there's a small desk up there. I got a clipboard with an inventory of each container. And yes, toilet paper is one of the essential items included. The trailer is wired for both AC and DC lighting, and there are also AC plugs loaded in several areas around the trailer. On the other side of the trailer, I have more support equipment: tables, chairs, pop-up canopies, sawhorses, ropes, extension cords, so on and so on. The door at the end of the trailer drops down, and I can load my generator into that spot in between. I have installed tie-down rings previously, and so as I bring it in, I'll have to tie the generator down to the tie-down springs, and away to go. Although not designed as such, the interior of this trailer can be set up as an operating location. It will be tight, but if it was weather issue outside, that would get me in. I owe Jeff Standiford a big pat on the back for all the assistance he gave me in making up the slide deck for this presentation. Thank you for visiting my shack this morning. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact me. My phone number is BR549.
And that's all, folks.